Howdy ho, ladies and gentlemen. Pronago bringing you another cast, and we have HitEmUp's Zerg on display. He's going up against just an easy computer, so I hope that you don't mind us more or less just having a bit of a warm-up act here. I figured, it's good to cast HitEmUp, and he was playing against the AI for some reason, so always good to see his training routine, see what he's doing. He even practiced typing out the fact that he is Zerg. This is, of course, going to be published on the same day as we end up casting his quarterfinals match. So that'll be very exciting if he ends up rolling Zerg. And actually, of course, I am trolling you guys. This is not an AI. This is ArbuzBudesh, who tragically did not make it out of his Battlements group for Acropolis number 3. I really thought he was a lock for playoffs for Throne Room stage, but Art of Turtle upset him in a 2-1 affair, essentially. So that is where we find ourselves in. A very interesting setup. Let's see what HitEmUp is going to do against Arbuz. This is, of course, Zerg versus Protoss. This is a matchup that we've seen a decent amount lately on the channel. We obviously had Kasuga versus Crank, and then before that we had obviously some TVP in the form of, HitEmUp versus the Shambler. But then before that, we, of course, had a bit of a deviation there. Nebline versus Jack Yelangsky, a matchup that is quite storied. And maybe we could even see in this very tournament. We'll have to find out. Maybe the Throne Room stage of Acropolis number 3 will give way to such a matchup. With that being said, Arbuz is rocking out with the Lattice opener, and he will be going for a gateway afterwards. Very cool stuff. One of the things that I feel like I should announce, if you guys missed the YouTube post on the YouTube community channel, is that, of course, I have released another scenario for donor-exclusive testing. And definitely one of those things that I am excited to show off there. So if you donate at $12 a month or more on our coffee page, you get access to that about a week before it goes to hit the general public. And I feel like that's always fun. That's always an exciting time. Speaking of exciting, we have a simulacrum that is trying to eat HitEmUp's workers. And he has pulled his Rocors back, and he is now going to try Burrow microing versus Vassal and versus Sim. If there's any player who could do it, it would be HitEmUp, but he's lost his first worker because they're targeting different workers, guys. I can't believe what we're seeing. He's burrowed what feels like a significant chunk of his workers, and only now is he making a gabillion quas. Maybe he can try to overwhelm the Sim with the Rocors and some Droleths, but oh my god, that one Sim standing on the burrowed Droleths to reveal them. Oh my goodness. Well, he's making a Circuit emergency, and he's just going to go ahead and burrow AFK. As the quas pop, it will deal with this hit squad. Damn, that was a lot of value, honestly. But, if Zerg still wins this, clearly they need to be nerfed. Is that why I was sent this replay? It's HitEmUp. Who would expect anybody other than HitEmUp to win a game that features HitEmUp? I mean, I know that I've been predicting him to drop a bunch of games in the Throne Room stage, not always necessarily win matches cleanly, as far as, I don't think every single series he plays in the Throne Room will be a clean sweep, a 3-0, all the way to a 4-0 in the Grand Finals. No, I don't think that's happening. In fact, I feel like once he hits either AUD 64 or Crankendow in the upper bracket, it seems pretty diabolical to predict anybody other than one of those two players. But that's just me talking, and HitEmUp wants to prove us wrong. Obviously, as you can see by the old idle model, this is a bit of a dated game. And of course, our map is Radium. It's pure quas, so the Zealots are going to be really helpful here, but there are a bunch of Zethrakors. I guess only 6 of them. It's not the biggest number. Maybe he can just kind of wrap around for harassment back at the main base while the quas keep the ground army here entertained. What do we got going on back at home for HitEmUp? He has started to try to make a little bit more on the worker side. His Zets are going to potentially have an opportunity to surround those Ecclesiasts, but instead he decides to pivot right past them and keep sending them straight for the mineral line. Now, the problem is the mineral line has scribes that you can decollide, and there is a warden here as well. However, the Zets go after the production structure, which honestly isn't a terrible idea. The only problem is that the Zets were on the side that was actually adjacent to the warden, so the warden just bops them. And now HitEmUp is contained into one base, going for a Hydrath Den instead of a Zorkish Shroud, and of course not able to go for anything as far as an extra hatch or anything like that. Still behind in workers, but not by that much. I feel like Arbuz might have missed some, but I also saw him queue up a bajillion workers earlier, so maybe he didn't miss any. Either way, his Nexus is up for the natural expansion, and as you can see here, this is a very lonely spot. There is not a single Hatcherosk, not even one worker. Protoss don't even need workers, at least not the ground ones. They can just build artisans. They don't need a nexus. Didn't you guys see Embassy on the way? So Arb is clearly going to be doing that. It would be really funny, actually, if next time I feature Arbuz on the channel, I don't ever drop the mask about the him being a computer. I just keep saying, yeah, this is our AI. And, like, imagine Arbuz wins this game, but I'm casting it as, like, and the AI comes on in with the micro, Cosmonarchy Artificial Intelligence is state-of-the-art, and you can watch it defeat HitEmUp right here and now. Anyway, that's a pipe dream, because I don't think Arbuz can beat HitEmUp. But maybe I'm wrong. Although, really, if Arbuz beats HitEmUp Zerg, but then he dropped games to, you know, Hamster and Art of Turtle and wasn't able to get out, like, what the hell? Huh? Question mark? You know what I mean? That being said, there is the hatch coming. There's a whole boatload of Hydras. HitEmUp has turned on the military faucet, and I actually don't see a whole lot of tech coming out here for Arbuz. He's pretty behind when it comes to the Ardent Authority timing here. So this is one of the things you got to worry about, right? You got 38 military units for HitEmUp and only 21 for Arbuz, and a lot of them are a lot more squishy than, you say, Gateway units or Grand Library units, right? A lot of these are Idols, Manifolds, there's even some Ecclesiasts there. Still, so far it's working out pretty well. The Hydras can help break down the Zealots. The Ecclesiasts aren't really able to find too much shield sustain off to their one side. Those Hydras off to the east, not exactly hitting the right spots there against Arbuz's army. Still, the Hydra's trying their best to just mulch individual units and focus them down. We've got the Witness out here just in case there's a Lakes follow-up, but there is no such thing coming. Very interesting. Well, there's Zeths, there's Hydras. Yeah, it feels like right about now, this is one of those things where you got to watch out. You could end up getting bounced around a little bit if you're on the Protoss side and you end up losing your army on the other side of the map. That being said, HitEmUp has made a couple of workers, so it's not as powerful as it could be. However, the Witness going ahead, really, really good there for Arbuz. He recognizes, actually, I probably don't have enough muscle here. Let me just go ahead and expand. And, of course, drop a second Ardent Authority. So he's going to go for an Acantor open, which doesn't suck. Of course, if he ends up going for drops, that would also help out. There's sort of anti-drop defense here, but it's not. It's on the wrong side of the hatch. So I don't really think it's going to work out too well there to, you know, if the Acantor gets dropped over there. And we don't have a Vornath, so HitEmUp is not going to be able to use Nathrakors to pick off the transports on their way in. It's one of those things you got to watch out for, right? So instead, we've got a ski-backed Scab coming. I know what HitEmUp wants. I know what HitEmUp likes. He enjoys being able to make Bactylisks. And so, that is A-okay with me. That's probably what he'll end up doing. The Witness is within vision range of that, so if Arbuz occasionally looks over at his opponent's base, we'll see what he's up to. Couple of stray shots hit the Zethrakors on their way out of the building. Witness now scooting over. I wonder how long before HitEmUp notices and makes a Noveleth, because his screen is like over this area a lot. You can see his Zero-Core is actually being like, it's colliding with the Witness, so that obviously creates that shimmer, that little strange visual artifact that, you know, if you didn't know better, you'd say, what? Is that a bug? But it's not a bug. It's a feature. 7 Bactylisks on the way for HitEmUp, and he's keeping his money relatively low. Was only banking it earlier just for the purposes of building so many Bactylisks. And now he's on the way out with them. Pretty respectable worker count. Obviously, he's just barely hit saturation on minerals in the natural, and of course the main base also in a relatively similar position. We're expecting to see a third base coming soon, but Arbuz has actually been ahead of him in terms of worker count and in terms of expansion for a while. Now, will he translate that into something that works out properly? You can see Arbuz is one of the sole players that will really bother with the macro servitor build, where you just make a ton of these mineral-only units that when they die, they speed you up the same way that a Vassal or an Ecclesiast does. And with this amount of Bactylisks, I'm going to say they will die. In fact, front-loading them in the army, even before your Zealots, would probably be a really good move here. Only trouble is, I don't see a lot of Zealots. In fact, I don't really see a lot of chaff at all. We don't really have a lot of melee range units that are going to be able to do something about this situation, in my humble opinion. And the third base and fourth base are going to be going down at the same time for HitEmUp. The traditional third spot, and then at 12 o'clock as well for that fourth. Very good. A Servitor will move across the map and catch a bunch of Zethrakors on the way, but I haven't seen Arbuz flash his screen over there. Instead, he's now going to notice, oh, wait a second, I've split my forces, and maybe not in the best of manners either. Bulwark and Matrix not quite up to snuff, and the Zethicors are starting to tear into those Vespene miners. Meanwhile, all those Zeths bought so much time as Arbuz is going to be descended upon. This is a similar position to when he ended up losing to Krankendow, but back then he was building unitary unions and getting more units out there as a result. Now those servitors do end up popping, and that allows the workers to evacuate a little bit easier. You can see him trying to pull them just to soak up some of the bounces as the Zealots connect on top of those very, very vulnerable Bactylisks. It's actually really difficult here for HitEmUp to get out of this position. He's going to end up sacking the entire army. Has he gotten what he's come for? Has he done what he needed to do? Well, he's going to go ahead and evacuate with some of the Hydras, but I think most of these Bactylisks are dead in the water, especially the ones tagged by the Hierophant, slowing them down in the process. And it does feel like with the Acantors slowly trundling along, this could be a very deadly push. You can see HitEmUp trying to turn around and get a little bit of extra damage. How soon does Arbuz reset his economy? And oh, double unitary union coming. Looks like I wasn't so off the mark in terms of my thought process there. And yeah, is that the last Bactylisk? It is. By the way, the Hierophant kind of guaranteeing the kill even after it turns into a Hydra after formerly being a Bactylisk, right? You get that Zerg regression cornerstone going. So worker count-wise, HitEmUp is definitely a lot closer, but he doesn't really develop his tech, whereas Arbuz has been doing that for pretty much the whole time through. Now, he did make a pretty big blunder by responding to just a bunch of Zethicors with most of his army, but now that he scouts that out, you know, he can kind of preempt that position with just a couple of units and maybe send a few more units out there to reinforce his forward position outside his third base. The fourth base also up and running. The third base only now being reset. You definitely have to give it to HitEmUp as far as the economy is concerned. He's shot back up there. Although I say that, he actually hasn't really saturated either his third or fourth base. So maybe they're a little bit more even than I think. 2 Unars coming. These can be very good artillery units. I thought that would have been a Crucible. Instead, it's a Rogue Gallery. I wonder what the purpose of that is. Maybe he wants to make some Kabbalists later on for more chaos, or Charlatans to multiply the damage dealt. Now, leading with the Hydras is a pretty big tell for Arbuz that the main army is on the way, so he ends up rotating over his side as well. And this is something that I don't really see a lot of Zergs doing. They typically have more units than their opponent, and a lot of their units can be pretty ineffective in a straight-up fight, like Zethicors later on in the game. We think about Mutalisks a lot in Cosmonarchy, as well as Starcraft 1, not really being great in a head-on fight, but you can go for a more harassment-oriented style with them. HitEmUp is just going to try to bludgeon through, but I don't think it's actually going to happen. The Servitors speeding up the Zealots has been a pretty big factor, but now the Bactylisk count is high enough that they do end up getting rid of that. And so you can see Arbuz end up wiping. No units left over there on that side of the map for him. And his Unars weren't actually done yet, so they did not join the fight. But the Unars can be a pretty big, useful utility versus this. The problem is all the workers end up getting sniped. We don't have that many Hydras, actually, with this army, so it does feel like this is an opportunity for the Nexus to stay alive, but I say that, I guess I undercounted the Hydra count. There's some more off to the side there behind the Bactylisk stack, so that's another Nexus snipe in favor of HitEmUp. But he's still behind in workers, so actually you still have to give it to, potentially anyway, give it to Arbuz on the economy, even after all those losses. Now, if he can wipe the Hydra stack as they dive forward and try to charge down the Unars, that can be a different story as well. The problem is he's only been making Servitors out of the Arden authorities, and that will be a Jeej out of our Ukrainian Protoss. Unfortunate. I feel like if he had invested a little bit more into splash damage or even multi-target, the Architect comes from the same structure as the Unar, and they have comparable training times and comparable resource costs, that could be a pretty big option. I think what Arbuz was going for there makes a lot more sense if he has the economy and the units that he expended over-committing, over-responding to Zethicors. Anyway, a very interesting match there to showcase the dynamics of PvZ some more. It will be a hotly contested matchup here as we have, just in the quarterfinals alone later today, as of the publishing date of this video, we've got the Shambler versus Hamster, we've got Nablime versus Krankendow, and in both cases, the Zergs are higher seeds, considered higher skill right now, hot on the moment. But surely Nablime and the Shambler will be able to give a good account of themselves in those series. I'm expecting good ones anyway. So that's one of those situations where you think about PvZ, you think about the Zerg's uncanny ability to come back from even early damage. These are good things to think about and learn and maybe navigate later on in the matchup. Cool stuff. Thanks to Arbuz for submitting that particular replay. Now we have a little bit more data about HitEmUp should he end up playing Zerg. He likes to stay at that tier 1 and see if he can go for the jugular before the Protoss get up to their usual shenanigans of tech rushing. That's it. GG's. We'll be back tomorrow for more videos. Well, at least potentially. I guess you'll have to subscribe and check back in then to find out. GG.